welcome to Women's Cricket Chat. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Alexandra, Alex for short.
On today's episode, we've got history maker Sue Redfern, the first woman to play and umpire in a World Cup. We talk about the changes since her debut in the 90s as a 17-year-old to how she's made a career out of umpiring today. This episode is another one full of inspiring quotes and stories from a leader of the women's game.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Long time no see. So, I'm well, thanks. So you're obviously doing very well, though, enjoying life?
Yeah, I tried to do well, I hope. Yeah, it's been mad. I think the last time I saw you was, I don't know if it was after Scotland, but Scotland was definitely 2012.
Oh, my goodness. So I wasn't even umpiring then. That's the bizarre thing. Kind of like that was my last, so 2012 was my last cricket playing year. So, you probably played in one of my last games of cricket.
Well, I've got some lovely photos from that Scotland tour.
Oh, bless you.
There's a photo of you and me like high-fiving and stuff, or high-tennis.
Oh, excellent.
I can't remember whether you were at Gully and you caught one or something.
Yeah.
I just remember, there was definitely a nice photo.
That would be memorable for me if I managed to catch it, so that's good.
I mean, it was memorable for me just being surrounded by like yourself and so many other like inspirational women. Like the MCC, honestly, it changed my like. I don't really play so much now, but like changed my life massively. Like the whole C to B with the MCC is so true, kind of thing. It opened my world up.
Yeah,
more than
and I think, for me, kind of like definitely, if I ever go back and play a game of cricket, it would be for MCC because of the reasons why you do it. You don't do it to win. You do it because of the passion of the game and to help others. And, kind of like for me, it's a great initiative and it's really exciting. It would be awesome. It would be awesome to do an MCC tour, to be the umpire on the MCC tour. But also as well, I could don one white. So I could maybe just get out there and play a game of cricket. So maybe that should be my aspiration for the next few years, pending COVID.
Perfect. So Alex, do you want to start with the first question?
Obviously, you're a great player. I just kind of wanted to know what it was like to sort of make your debut at 17.
Looking back at it now, Alex, it happened very quickly. And I don't think, I was prepared. It just, I was playing some men's cricket. There was no women's cricket, girls cricket when I was growing up. So I was playing a bit of men's cricket, played some women's cricket from 13 and literally kind of like got scouted very early and just went through the system. And then I got the call up when I was 16, just after the Women's World Cup in 93. In 1993 at Lords, when the women won the World Cup, I was actually in the crowd. And then that following winter, it was the first time I've been picked for the winter training squad, and there they are, the people that have won the World Cup that were my idols. I'm suddenly training alongside them. So it was all very quick. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think I was prepared for it, and I don't think you fully appreciate it. I certainly didn't fully appreciate what a privilege that was until I stopped playing. But the experience, I think, being around such great players and touring with people who were significantly older than me certainly set me up, I think, for life in terms of kind of like those life skills and things like that. So incredibly nervous, and just playing cricket with your idols was just an incredibly privileged position.
Can I quickly ask as well, so who were the players that you were looking up to and how did you hear about the 1993 World Cup?
Yeah, so basically, like I say, I started playing cricket with my brother's cricket club. And my dad was an ex-cricketer, so kind of like we were around cricket clubs. And it was only my mum and dad had seen a newspaper article just when I was 13 that a women's cricket club just over the border in Derbyshire were forming and they were looking for players. And mum and dad kind of like showed me the newspaper article and said, would that be something you're interested in, playing women's cricket? And I said, yeah, I'll go along and have a look. So I joined the women's cricket team and it was Derby Women's. My coach at the time was a lady called Sue Redfern, who, for me, I attribute a lot of thanks to Sue because of the work which she did with me as a coach, made me the cricketer I was really in terms of kind of like progressing me. But because I was involved in a women's cricket club, obviously the women's network, the Women's Cricket Club Network, were aware of the World Cup and everything was very much volunteer. I mean, it was the Women's Cricket Association rather than the ECB at that point, who were the governing body for women's cricket. And when that World Cup happened, it relied on a lot of cricket clubs like Derby women's cricket to support the tour. So we actually hosted the West Indies women in terms of help them acclimatise, get used to the logistics. We helped with the logistics and volunteered to help that squad. And we played in warm-ups with them and friendlies to really get them prepared for the World Cup. So that was pretty much how I heard about the World Cup, just literally because I was playing women's cricket. And I suppose, the great thing was that final was televised on BBC Grandstand, which was awesome. But we went along on the day and we watched that, and, some amazing performances. There was quite a lot of my colleagues then, because I played county cricket for East Midlands women, and Jo Chamberlain and Karen Smithies, Wendy Watson were all part of that World Cup final, and they literally were in that team. So again, I knew persons of that. So, I'd been around. Jane Smith was in the, who was Jane Cassar. Jane Smith was in the World Cup squad, didn't play in that final, I don't think. But literally, that's how I heard about it. But who are my idols? Most definitely kind of like Jo Chamberlain. I had the great pleasure of opening the bowling with her. She was the out and out pace bowler, really, really quality bowler. For me to open the bowling at the other end with Jo in county cricket was a great opportunity. So definitely looking up to Jo. Wendy Watson and Karen, both grit, determination. Other squad members, it has to be said, kind of like for me, my greatest idol in women's cricket is 100% was Jeanette Britton, who unfortunately has passed now. But literally for me, Jeanette's, kind of like Jeanette Britton, JB, was the epitome of what you want in a female cricketer, that determination, the quality, the character, and her willingness to help people. So for me, that was my idol.
Definitely, like 1993 was a turning point, and then like 2009 is obviously a turning point. 2017 is a turning point, and without that, we wouldn't be seeing like that 86,000 at the MCG the past year. But thinking about those kind of early playing days as well, what was it like wearing kind of like the England shirt? Obviously, were you in skirts at that time as well? Like, what were the differences back then?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely transformed, hasn't it? I mean, I'd like to think I kept a level of fitness, but the fitness levels have changed significantly now. I mean, what was it like? I mean, it was an absolute privilege wearing a shirt representing your country. It was a privilege to be given the opportunity to travel the world. At that point, it wasn't paid, it wasn't professional, but, fundamentally, you're still there representing your country, and, you're getting to experience and see different cultures, which was just, for a 17-year-old going away, my first major tour was India, and it was a 7-week tour which included test match cricket as well at that point. So to be away for that long, it was the first time I've been away from home without my parents overseas, and to actually experience that and be part of that, kind of like it's just a massive opportunity really for me. And kind of like we were in skirts, so it was 97, I think, we trialled trousers for the first time as an international team. I think we played New Zealand in 98, and they played in skirts and we played in trousers. So kind of like it was really strange seeing that on a cricket pitch, seeing that in the media that, one team was wearing skirts, the other wearing trousers. And, the Women's Cricket Association had a vote in 97, 98 about whether or not we should move to skirts or trousers. And there was a massive argument and there was a massive split because, obviously the identity of the game, I used to enjoy playing in a skirt, but it wasn't practical. And, kind of, I remember the reason why we certainly advocated trousers was because I actually saw one of my colleagues in India take a slide in a skirt and actually get a really bad cut, which ultimately became infected. And, that could have been prevented by wearing trousers. So I think it just changed the dynamic of the game because it allowed us to be more athletic, and it allowed for kind of like the types of fielding now that are common throughout, really.
Yeah, because I guess I've done a little bit of reading about the whole kind of skirt and the whole kind of like outfits and stuff, because I kind of thought, oh my God, why are these women like being made to wear skirts? I didn't realise that actually it was the players' choices, and it was actually a marker of difference to set women different to the men as a positive thing, not as a negative.
It just was in those era, and it was probably what was accepted. I remember, a couple of I used to really enjoy my Len Smith skirt. That was one of the main manufacturers of the skirts, but it was really expensive. So, you really looked after your skirt because it was like 50 quid in those days to actually buy a new one. So obviously you made sure it was well looked after. But I do remember kind of like Enid Bakewell, the legend Enid Bakewell, which actually got me into cricket. So literally kind of like my brother brother was going along to a coaching session when he was a kid. I was 9 years old, and my mum was dropping my brother off at this coaching session, and Enid was the coach. And she came across when my mum was walking away going, well, why isn't she staying? And it was like, well, is she allowed? And it was like, yes, she's allowed. Get her in here. Kind of like, let's carry on playing cricket. So it was down to Enid I started playing cricket. But I remember Enid used to be involved in some of the junior England work, and kind of like she would religiously make sure that our skirts were the right length, not too short, because obviously it's about respect in the game. So I've got a lot to thank Enid as well in that respect.
Yeah, no, definitely, because obviously she's still around as well, and I've heard, is she still dabbling with a little bit of cricket here and there, or having an input?
Do I don't know how old Enid is. She seems to just be evergreen, really, in terms of, I think she'll just carry on playing cricket until the inevitable end, really. But such an amazing role model around the era of Baroness Rachel Hayhoe Flint. But Enid is an eccentric character who's done so much for the game, so amazing in terms of role model, put so much back, and was a really great cricketer, kind of like a smart cricketer. When I left the East Midlands and started playing for Derbyshire, when the county split and there were more county teams, I went with Derbyshire. And I remember playing against Enid for the first time because I'd always been in the same team as her until then. And as a bowler, it was very difficult to play, to bowl against her, because she'd be ahead of her time. She'd come up with all of these different random shots, and it would make it very difficult for you as a bowler to be comfortable. So Enid is definitely one of those early kind of like influences of the game, really.
And you just mentioned that point as well about the regionals representing East Midlands to then Derby. So I guess now the whole kind of regional structure seems quite new and it's exciting. What do you think the strengths are for having a regional output like now versus the county system?
Yeah, I think what's really important, what the big difference will be moving forward, is actually historically county cricket was instead of club cricket. And I think what's really important now is there's more club cricket, which is available for women and girls. So more cricket clubs providing opportunities, female only opportunities for, female cricketers. And I think, having that regional structure means the best can play the best. And it means there's aspiration, and that gap between international and county players is narrowed, which means there's more opportunity for people to progress and be cited and actually develop and compete for an international position. And it can only be good for our game. Australia, let's be honest, Australia are ahead, in my opinion, in terms of kind of like the depth of cricketers that can come into their squads and their quality of cricketers they've currently got, and anything which we do in this regional structure has to be to break that gap. And it has to be to make sure that, our current England players are competitive. It's competitive for places. And, kind of like looking at, first season of the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy, obviously I umpired in a little bit of that competition before I went off to the international competition, to see the quality of players coming through and that depth coming through. And then obviously with the professional contracts, it's only going to get better in terms of kind of like that, which can only help with us commercialising and attracting more people to the game, because we know that they're elite athletes, and that's great.
What sort of support do you think needs to be put in place to make sure that there are more professional cricketers and more contracts awarded?
It's doing what the ECB are already doing, I think, in terms of like growing that development centres, growing the regional structures, growing the professionalism, the amount of women that are able to actually make a living out of this sport. So they feel assured that ultimately it's not just England or nothing. So the more that actually there's more competitive cricketers who can make a living out of it, who can train full time, who can obviously kind of like, look at Tash Farrant. It's a great example at the moment. Tash Farrant a year ago lost her England contract. Where was she going to go? She's now got a professional contract, and as a result of the Rachel Hayhoe, I think she's got back into the squad, hasn't she? I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of that squad selection, but that's just proof that the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy and the work she's done there is, it's not a closed door anymore. There are opportunities, there are more opportunities for women, kind of like to carry on in their career. And Tash has come back from what might have been a very difficult period for her.
Just thinking now as well, I want to quickly take you back to your debut again, because you mentioned playing against India. So what was it like playing in India?
Yeah, yeah. So nothing prepares you. Certainly, nothing prepared me for traveling overseas, being in a country that are just completely passionate about cricket. It was the first time. Over here in England, you get crowds of 250. Let's say would be the highest level of crowd I ever had been in front. And then suddenly in India, the first game, you've got 17,000 people watching you, all screaming for India. So kind of like a number of things really. Playing cricket overseas in extreme heat, being overseas and away, kind of like staying in varied hotels. And then in 95, when I first went to India, we were kind of like semi-self-funded. So kind of like the accommodation was basic, shall we say, kind of like being in environments like that, playing in the crowds like that, and also playing in different pitch conditions, very different pitch conditions. During the World Cup in 97, when we went back, I do remember a game of cricket that was played after they literally dried the pitch using hot coals on silver trays. So kind of like literally that's something that wouldn't happen here. So just seeing that different culture, seeing that how pitches are prepared and how you get the game on and things. So yeah, very different experience being overseas. A lot of those days, I don't know what it's like now, but those days we had a lot of formal receptions outside of the cricket playing. So every night we were invited to somewhere to go and, speak to people and obviously certain dignitaries within the local areas of India. So yeah, incredibly busy and attack on all senses, shall we say.
Just sort of picking up on you mentioning the 1997 World Cup, I just wanted to know, what was it like playing in that World Cup, and how did you sort of deal with the pressure of playing in a big event like the World Cup?
Yeah, so obviously, kind of like for cricketers, I think it's the pinnacle of your career. Like for athletics, maybe the Olympics is the pinnacle of their careers. So playing in a World Cup is the opportunity to show and demonstrate that you're the best in the world. So the expectation levels go up. It's kind of like a series. You can come back from a series within a World Cup. If it's knockout, you can't come back. So every game is like a World Cup final. So actually, kind of like competing for places, it would be fair to say I was never a kind of like a consistent first team starter, so I was always on the fringe, always battling for places, so obviously you just want to, every time you go out in the nets, you want to prove yourself. It is quite a pressured environment, as it should be, I suppose, ultimately elite cricket. But, yeah, it's very difficult because, you want to do the best for the team, but at the same time, you are competing against your teammates for places. So, that creates an interesting environment.
Looking beyond the game as well, tell us about when you kind of left playing for England. What did your kind of career look like?
Yeah, so I suppose really I stopped playing England in 2000. So kind of like I went back to club and county cricket. At that point, I wasn't working in cricket. It was only in 2005 I had the opportunity to come and work in cricket, 2005-06, I think it was. And I took that opportunity. And at that point, I came back to a little bit more. I'd left the game for a couple of years. I wasn't playing any club cricket. And then I came back to work for ECB as a women's and girls regional officer. And then since then, I've been in various roles within the organisation. So I'm currently now a facilities planning manager. So my job is to support cricket clubs and help cricket clubs with kind of like their facility investment, grants and design, and just making things more inclusive for everybody, really. So yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm very privileged that I work in cricket. And I think, from my perspective, the way I see it is I'm one of the luckiest people alive because, my passion was cricket when I was growing up, and to work in it and to be able to influence change and to give back something that's given me so much is just a great privilege, really.
You sort of mentioned that you took a couple of years out of the game. Do you think that sort of helped you sort of refresh and reset, or do you think it's had a positive or negative effect?
For me, I think it's been a really good thing because I went off and worked in a completely different sector. So my professional career was completely different. It gave me new skills, different perspective to come back in and work. If you look, I'm kind of like an ex-player who's now an umpire, kind of like you think, well, okay, have you only ever done cricket? Whereas actually, I have got different skills and different experiences that have come from different sectors, so actually having that break and having that refresh, it just, when I came back, Alex, it just made me kind of like, I was like, wow, I've missed this. And I am really passionate about it, so it just gave me that special impetus really to kind of like carry on.
I definitely know what you mean with that, kind of when you leave the game, whatever level, like, but doing this, speaking to like players and speaking to yourself as a former player and obviously now as an umpire, I'm literally getting that buzz again of like, I just want to go for a net.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's about, isn't it? Like, you have to see it to be it, and that's at whatever level. Like, I'm on about just having fun, and that's what it's meant to be about as well, isn't it? So
yeah, for sure. As soon as it stops being fun, you've got to ask yourself, well, why are you doing it? You know, so, and that's including the umpiring now. I mean, again, I've been really lucky with umpiring, but you've got to enjoy it because it's a tough gig otherwise. You know, it's not something that you go in half-hearted, you know, because some days are tough days. So you've got to want to do it and enjoy it.
You mentioned about your services to cricket. So obviously you were recognised with an MBE. So what was that day like? And tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, just slightly embarrassed, to be honest, Hannah. So I suppose it's going back to the day I actually received the letter that I'd been nominated for an MBE. And I honestly thought it was a joke, you know, kind of like I read the letter, read it again, and I was like, no, it must be the wrong person. This is, you know, it must be some form of spoof. And then when it finally sank in, it was kind of like, I just feel, you know, incredibly humbled that people have taken the time. I don't know who nominated me. People have taken the time to nominate me and endorse that. And to be recognised for that, you know, it is a great privilege. And, you know, I think, you know, kind of like from my perspective, I want to make sure that I use that in a positive way to show that, you know, women can do whatever they want. You know, you can be whatever you want within this game. And, you know, for me, that's really important that, you know, that MBE isn't about me. It's not about my achievements. It's about showing people that actually, do you know what? If you want to do something, you can go and do it. Feel positive, keep your faith, and you can go out there and do it. And, you know, I've been lucky. Sometimes I've made my own luck. Yep, I've worked really hard, but, you know, fundamentally kind of like it just shows that you can do whatever you want in this sport, and you should be allowed to kind of like progress in whatever role you want to do.
Obviously, getting an MBE must be one of your proudest achievements. I just kind of wanted to know, what have been sort of your proudest achievements on the field?
Great questions, really. I think for me, I've never been asked this question, so I'm just going to think out loud, really. But for me, proudest moment on the field would be personally 97, had a really good series against South Africa and picked up player of the match, one of the games, my best bowling figures. So from that perspective, 4 for 21, kind of like I bowled. I actually dropped a catch for a fifer. So it was my own fault that I dropped a caught and bowled. But yeah, kind of like I was really proud about that, about how my bowling was. So that would rank up there as one of the most kind of like memorable times. Another time was we, as a women's cricket club, I played for Derby Women's Cricket Club, and we were Premier League, but we weren't the top team. So there was always teams above us, and we played once in a semi-final of a cup knockouts, and the team which we were playing were by far going to be the team that should really progress, and we actually won that game. So I think from that perspective, you know, just showing that no one individual is better than an overall team performance. So I think from that perspective, that was a really exciting day and a really enjoyable day. And then I think from my umpiring perspective, kind of like probably my proudest moment might have been kind of like the first time I walked out there in the World Cup game. So my first debut in a World Cup umpiring, you know, the nerves were no different in terms of kind of like historically when I was a player, I used to get butterflies. Yeah, kind of like most definitely felt quite proud, and yeah, kind of like to get out of a game umpiring and, you know, not making any errors and just enjoying the game and, you know, not being the centre of attention on the umpiring is a good day.
You mentioned that you umpired in the World Cup. I just also wanted to know, what was it like to umpire in the World Cup, and how did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, so I suppose like really it's a little bit like playing, that there's different layers, there's different, you know, kind of like layers of competition really. So back in 2013, I started umpiring. In 2015, ICC put me onto a development panel of umpires, which consists of a number of umpires across the world who would umpiring in different development international competitions. So my first tournament was actually over in Thailand for a World Cup T20 qualifier. So that really started off my international umpiring career. So from there, the performances then from there dictate which appointments you get. So I still sit on the ICC development panel and I'm appointed accordingly. So yeah, that's how the opportunity came about. Obviously, when the World Cup in 2017 was really the first time, kind of like, I suppose ultimately television and actually being on television kind of like came to my experience. So, you know, that really steps up a notch in terms of kind of like, obviously, you know, you are being watched, you are on television, your decisions are being scrutinized, you've got lots of of different processes that you need to learn. So obviously from that perspective, the preparation, like any game of cricket, preparation is key. So yeah, kind of like it was an additional kind of like element.
What is it like dealing with the pressures of umpiring? Because I'm sure like, if you're the main umpire, then you've got third umpire in your ear, you've got square leg. So what's it sort of like being the main umpire, having to make all those decisions in a pressure situation?
Just again, like cricket, you know, if you're a player, you go out there and do practice, and everything you do before that game of cricket helps you deal with that situation. So in my opinion, your preparation, if you've not prepared right, then you're setting yourself up to fail. You know, the key thing is that you remember that you're working as a team. You know, you've always got the team there, and particularly when you've got television, you've got additional team members with the TV umpire, a fourth official. You've got, you know, people who are supporting you through a match referee. You know, ICC have umpire coaches that are also there to support you and to help you and to help develop. So, you know, the pressure of it, kind of like, I think, you know, you learn through experience, and, you know, it's just like cricket playing. I think the more experiences you get under the belt, the better you deal with things, you know, and you reflect on how your own decisions are. So, you know, I walk off a game of cricket, it's not done. I reflect on what I've done and I say, can you do anything better? And I think, you know, back in 2019 was a difficult year for me umpiring. I looked at it at the end of the season and said, right, what can I do to improve? How do I get better? I actually appointed a sports psychologist to kind of like help me through some of the issues which I'd encountered, and to help me deal better with that pressure and to deal better with that situation. So if I've made a mistake, or if there's a lot of pressure on me, you know, how do I deal with that in the moment? And, you know, that's the critical thing. So I think, you know, you've got to go, there's no one size fits all answer. You've got to work out what works for you and what's best for you. And that's like a player, really, I suppose, you know, in that respect.
I just want to quickly pick up on that point as well about getting that psychology and support and stuff. What support is there at the moment for umpires at that top level? Is that kind of something that is accessible to everybody, or is it something that you have to do off your own back?
There is support, Hannah. So like I say, you know, kind of like we're very fortunate that we've got ICC have regional umpire coaches. So I have weekly sessions with my umpire coach, which we predominantly, the processes around being a TV umpire, but we also talk about just general umpiring and development and where I'm going and how I'm feeling, you know, and there are kind of like sessions and workshops. Obviously, you know, a lot of it is about your own self-help and, you know, going off and thinking about what's best for you. So building a network of people that you trust, and mentors and coaches yourself that you trust, and, you know, you can go to and ask questions and ask them to challenge you, you know, kind of like is pretty critical, really. So I have a bank of people that, you know, I believe are trusted, where if something happens on or off the field, I might contact them and talk them through that, and, you know, ask for their honesty in terms of kind of like, actually, what do you think? This is how I dealt with it. What do you think?
Just picking up on you talking about umpiring, what made you decide to become an umpire? Because I know a lot of ex-players wouldn't assume or sort of go down that career path. So what made you decide to become an umpire?
Back in 2012 was my last season. It wasn't, Hannah, because I played with you, mate. It wasn't that at all. It was literally, it was taking days for me to get recovered from playing cricket. It really did hurt for a number of days afterwards. So I decided that my playing days were behind me, finally ready to hang up the boots. And I thought long and hard about, I'm working in cricket. Is that enough? Do I want to do something else? Yeah, I want to do something else in cricket. I've got my coaching badges, but kind of like for me, coaching wasn't something that I wanted to progress. I thought about scoring and thought, well, you know, as much as I enjoy scoring, it's probably not something I want to progress. And I thought, well, what about umpiring? Okay, well, I used to give the umpire a fair hard time when I was a bowler. So, you know, why not put my money where my mouth is and see if I can do a better job? And I think I was a little bit influenced by my dad as well, who also cricket umpired in his local league back in Nottinghamshire. So, you know, I think there was a bit of a family trait in there. But yeah, kind of like, so that's the reason why I took up umpiring.
Do you think being an ex-player, do you think that's helped aid your umpiring, or do you think it's hindered it?
I think it's done both, Alex. So I will try and explain this in a fast way. But basically, I think to start with, it really helped because I understood the game, and it helps you to kind of like predict some of the stuff and to understand potentially where players may flare, you know, because of the frustration of the situation. So I think to start with, it really helps your umpiring. But I think there comes a point where it actually hindered my umpiring in terms of, you know, as a player, kind of like you'd see a ball and you'd see a batter shape to make a shot, and you'd like, you know, where the ball was going to go. So as a fielder, you would react and you'd probably be in advance of the ball being hit. You'd probably know where it was going. Whereas a cricket umpire, you can't do that. You've got to watch that ball all the way through. And if you don't, then you're going to miss things. And I started to miss things because I was thinking like a player. So yeah, I think it hindered at a certain point. But I think to start with, to help you blend into kind of like the on-field, I think it helps to start with, but it doesn't mean that somebody who's not played the game can't be a great umpire. And Claire Polozak is a good example of that, who's just made a test debut.
Just quickly on that as well, obviously there's a growing kind of cohorts of women coming through now. So who are the umpires to watch out for? Who are the kind of history makers and the people that are making you proud?
Yep. So overseas, there are a number of umpires across the globe who are now breaking glass ceilings. They're shattering them. You know, Claire Polozak making a test debut. Got Lauren Agenbach, who is from South Africa, who is the youngest umpire to make an international debut. You know, kind of like, so from that perspective, I'm sure there's more to come from Lauren. She's so young. She's like literally child. So, you know, kind of like, she won't mind me saying that, you know, she's so young in comparison. But you've got Jackie Williams, who's always been there or thereabouts around the West Indies, made her international ODI debut as well in men's cricket. And Kim Cotton, you know, not forgetting Kim last but least, you know, the fact that she stood in a World Cup final in front of 86,000 people and just took it in her stride, didn't she? She just didn't look as if she was phased at all. So, you know, from that perspective, just an amazing kind of like array of people that I can look up to and, you know, who I consider to be friends, but also as well who I can learn from is incredibly, I feel incredibly fortunate. Back here in the UK, obviously, you've got people like Mary Waldron coming through from Ireland, who's currently still playing cricket internationally. So, you know, from that perspective, good for her. You know, keep playing as long as you can, Mary, would be my advice. And then you've got people in the UK who made their Rachel Flint debut. So you've got a few people in there who've got long careers ahead of them. Some of them are ex-players, some of them haven't played before. And it's great to see more female umpires kind of like in the Rachel Flint. But, you know, kind of like my concern is, you know, there needs to be more. There needs to be more females who take up this, you know, whether it be from a playing background or whether it's from a non-playing background. And we've all got a role to play in that in terms of encouraging people. And part of that is, you know, I think, Hannah, you mentioned it earlier, you can't be what you can't see. You know, so, you know, the more we can visualize and make this normal, you know, kind of like perceived normal, the better that is. And the more we can see female umpires umpiring in a variety of formats, the better that is for all of us.
Definitely, because like umpires to me growing up, thinking about years ago now, so literally as from the age of kind of like 9, 10 to 17 or so, it was always grey old men. I don't think I ever came across a female umpire, and I guess that's really quite sad, I guess, because
I mean, sorry to interrupt there, but kind of like literally kind of like obviously a lot of my cricket playing as a youngster was a lot of male umpires, and there was nothing wrong with that. And you know, there are still some of the guys who were umpiring who umpired when I was a kid, you know, so kind of like John Hayes is a good example. He still umpires in the women's leagues, and he remembers me as like a 16-year-old 15-year-old kid, give him a little bit of jip about running down the wicket as a left arm over bowler, you know, sort of thing. So, you know, kind of like they are around. But equally, kind of like the Women's World Cup, you know, 2 female umpires, I think, in the Women's World Cup in 1973. You know, there were female umpires around, and I think I was quite lucky that, you know, subconsciously, I probably wasn't aware this impacted me, but I actually do remember some female umpires when I was growing up. So maybe that made me think, well, that's a role I could do.
100%, because that is so huge. And that's something that I've realised as well, looking back at old scorecards and stuff. The names of the umpires are often women. So I do wonder what perhaps went wrong for us not to build on that and realise it's only now kind of taking off again, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, more recently, I mean, you know, I'm lucky that, you know, kind of I sit on the national umpire panel for ECB. You know, actually, I'm not the first female umpire to sit on a national umpire for ECB. That's Lorraine Elgar, you know, and Lorraine, an amazing umpire, you know, kind of like, and, you know, again, part of my progression is down to people like Lorraine who persevered in previous decades and generations, you know, and we've got a lot to thank, you know, people who did this when, you know, actually equality in cricket was less so than what it is now.
And I really want to bring back to Jackie Williams, who you mentioned. So the pair of you together in 2016 against Oman versus Nigeria, you were the first 2 women in the middle. So tell Alex and I about that.
Yeah, it kind of happened, Hannah. So literally, we weren't aware that we were going to make history until the morning. And somebody politely told us just before we went on the pitch, and we were like, oh, okay, no pressure. So, you know, kind of like we went out there. But to be fair, kind of like it was, you know, I'd known Jackie for just over 12 months at that point. And, you know, it was a real privilege. Jackie is a very calm, the most laid back umpire I've probably stood with, you know, so from that perspective, it made it a very easy game of cricket. You know, that for me, umpiring in that male environment was really enjoyable. The lads were really supportive, and you know, at the end of the day, kind of like they just treated it as two umpires. At the end of the day, that's what you want. You know, I'm just an umpire doing my job, just want to get my job done, get a good game of cricket, hopefully everybody enjoys it, make the right decisions, do what the game expects. And yeah, kind of like it just privileged that I was setting a record then at that point.
You've talked a lot about umpiring. How easy or difficult is it to become an umpire, and what sort of support is there when you're sort of transitioning from player to umpire?
I live in the West Midlands back here, and when I first decided I wanted to be an umpire, I was like, right, how do I get into umpiring? And it's really a local county organisation, so Warwickshire ran the course. At that point, it was a 13-week course. Every Monday night in the winter, I went along for 13 weeks, and we went through the laws one by one, understanding of it. The first thing I would say is, if there's any players listening, understanding the laws will help your cricket, because I wasn't aware of some of the intricacies of the law, and I'd certainly, as a player, if I knew the law better, I'd certainly be able to be a better player and utilise those laws in a better way. So obviously that helped. Warwickshire as an association then provided me with a mentor. So my first season of playing cricket, there was somebody I could always go to and ask questions. The appointments, they, you know, made sure I was standing with more experienced, supportive colleagues. So again, that helps you. You know, there's nothing prepares you. You can learn the laws, but nothing really prepares you for standing on that cricket pitch for the first time and being an umpire, being in charge of 22 people, everybody looking to you to have to know the laws. And, you know, particularly if there's rain stoppages, you know, kind of like the complications of that, what to do and how to do it. That just comes down to experience and doing it. And like learning from your colleagues was pretty critical in that. So, and I'm not going to lie, it's nerve-wracking. I feel sick before I go onto a field every single time. And I don't think that will change. You know, I think that's what it is. But yeah, kind of like it's fortunate the support of Warwickshire and other colleagues kind of like help you through it, really.
Before we kind of start to kind of look to conclude, because there's so many questions that Alex and I would love to ask you, because it's just been so interesting, because you've got so many different angles to what you've achieved and stuff as well, like obviously from playing to umpiring to being at the ECB for like so many years and in so many different roles. But one of the questions that I've got that I'm really interested to find out about is, especially with that West Indies tour in September, so what was it like? Because it was constantly going up to you, and explain to us a little bit about the technology of the game.
So for me, technology in the game is great, because at the end of the day, as a player and as a cricket umpire, you want the game to be played in the right way and you want to get the right decisions. You know, there's no doubt that as a cricket umpire, I want to kind of like make the right decisions. And sometimes my decisions are wrong. And technology, if that means it can help overturn a decision that's significantly wrong, then I'm really happy with that, because the right decision is made. And from a personal perspective, you know, having all access to all the technology, all the imagery, it can only help me develop. If I use that post-match to review what I've done, understand why I'm making the mistakes, if there are any mistakes in there, or understanding what my trends are, it helps me as a cricket umpire. It helps me develop, you know, so I really support the use of technology in that. You know, likewise with, we did front foot no balls as every ball as a checkers TV umpire. It's a process. So being a cricket umpire on field and off field is about every ball you do the same thing. It's a routine thing. So every ball you go through the same process, and the tidier your processes are and the more consistent they are, the more time you buy yourself to kind of like deal with the situation and the decisions. You know, being a TV umpire, I don't get to do it very often. So, you know, kind of like the consistency and making sure those routines are refreshed is really important. But, you know, kind of like that day in particular, when I was TV umpire for the most recent West Indies series, West Indies versus England women, that actually, I think it broke a record about the number of decisions that came off field in a T20 international. I've had a couple of busy games. I had a really busy game in Perth as TV umpire in the World Cup in Australia last year. But that for me was the busiest second innings, particularly the second innings. I think I had 3 decisions in 1 over. I had a decision that was two decisions to make in 1 ball, so it was a really busy time. And, kind of like in the box with you, you have a match referee who is also doing his job, and he's trying to catch up as well because there's so much going on. He's got to record and log things. I'm trying to record and log things, and there's still decisions coming up off field. And then you've got some tech guys behind who's providing all the imagery and providing all the text. And then, of course, the main responsibility in the communication is, I make decisions based on images that a director gives me from a sky box, from the TV box, which is in another location in the ground, and they're trying to kind of like keep up with it. And, so that communication side of it. So, for me, that's part of kind of like, how do you do your routines ball by ball? Just being able to kind of like say, right, breathe, just keep calm and breathe, trust you, kind of like, I personally set up my room the way I want it as third umpire. So I have my little notes and I have my crib sheets and things like that. So if I've got a run out decision, I've got a crib sheet that talks me through what I need to be doing for run out. So it's about kind of like just trusting that crib sheet, trusting what's right for me, and just going with it, really. Yeah, it was one of the busiest nights I've ever had cricket umpiring.
Yeah, no, definitely, because I remember seeing stuff like on social media, and I think, do you listen to the No Balls podcast by Kate and Alex?
I do, yes. Yep.
So you've been mentioned a few times then.
I am aware of this, yep.
So yeah, how do you deal with that social media? Do you look at anything on social media for a start as well? And what do you think about their podcast too? Because obviously it's so much fun and it's lighthearted and you kind of have to just laugh, don't you? And how do you keep so calm, like you mentioned, and communicate so effectively?
It just comes to practice. And I think going back to the social media thing, it's probably not a good idea to look at social media, particularly after a game, because everybody's got their own opinions. And, ultimately kind of like, I'm going to make some mistakes. There are going to be some errors, or there's going to be some perceived errors. And I suppose ultimately kind of like it's about my way of dealing with it. I think one of the hardest things, is about really kind of like people that make comments that, kind of like don't actually know the laws of cricket, so it's really difficult for me when I go onto Twitter or Facebook and you see some infactual things about actually the law of the game, criticising my colleagues because they don't understand the laws. The more we can make laws awareness, the more we can simplify laws, and, kind of like the less criticism I think sometimes umpires get. So it is difficult, and I think you have to manage that. So I'm not keen on going on social media after a game of cricket. No Balls podcast, a bit disappointed I've not been invited, to be honest, on it. But, that would be an interesting podcast. I think it's great what they're doing, and it's great what you guys are doing in terms of kind of like, the more we can talk about women's cricket, the more we can see faces of women's cricket, the better that is. Good effort to those two. They're a bit crazy though, aren't they?
Especially from what I see of their posts on social media. Just picking up on, again, the umpiring, you've obviously trialed out a lot of different umpiring roles. What would you say has been your favourite?
So, I mean, what do you mean in terms of kind of like the role you play on field or off field?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm a cricket umpire because you want to be out in the middle, and being in the middle, you've got the best seat in the house. But I think some umpires don't like the TV umpire role. I think some of them don't like the technology or don't like not being the on-field umpire. From my perspective, I love doing it. I love doing the TV umpire role. I love technology and I love making those decisions and doing that. But likewise, I equally love being on field and, love seeing the game from the best position, really, stump to stump. You literally have the best view in the world. So, from that perspective, all jobs, kind of like all part of the team, and you're all contributing to hopefully a successful team as well. So regardless of whether you're reserve, on field, off field, to me, it doesn't matter. You've still got a role to play to be successful.
Perfect. I think as long as that's fine with Alex, I think that brings us to kind of a good place to finish up. Would we be able to steal kind of 60 seconds just to do some fun questions, just quick kind of fire, like...
Okay.
Well, Alex is a pro at these questions, so I'll let Alex start and then we'll just chip in.
Best cricketing memory?
England women win the World Cup in 93.
Worst sledging incident?
So many to name, really. Yeah, just so many to name. I remember once that some of my youngsters in my club team made some comments that were totally inappropriate, and, just remembering to stand there, just go, that's not the way we've taught you to sledge. You sledge better than that.
the worst sledging that you've ever said?
As a cricket umpire, this isn't great. So probably short stay.
Cricketing idol growing up.
Growing up, cricketing idol was the West Indies cricket team when I was growing up, the entire men's West Indies cricket team, because they actually kept me wanting to play cricket.
Who had the worst music choice growing up?
It's probably going to be me, because in those days we'd take CDs and Walkmans and tapes. Actually, the first tour in '95 in India, we took Walkmans, and literally the only music I'd have on there was Erasure. That was it. Sorry.
Last book you read.
Crime thriller.
Favourite TV show to binge watch?
Pretty much loving The Crown on Netflix, but I've got into, and I'm ashamed to say this, I've got into New Girl. But also as well, I will also make my point that I am a closet Home and Away fan.
Honestly, I love New Girl. I've seen it about 4 times. That and Brooklyn Nine-Nine are my go-to shows.
So Queen's Gambit as well. I'll just plug Queen's Gambit as well.
And your favourite podcast to listen to?
Obviously yours. Did I succeed in that?
I mean, maybe there was a subtle hint, maybe. But
What's going on with your background? What are all the German football scarves?
So I put up a fake background, and Alex was like, "No, that just looks terrible." So I was like, "Fine, you can see my background." So it's but me and my boyfriend, whenever we go abroad, obviously COVID, we can't do that at the moment, but we always watch a football match and we collect a scarf. But it's a good talking point as well. It breaks the ice for like awkward things if I have any kind of thing. But yeah, we've got some German. We've got Melbourne I went to World Cup last year as well.
Very good.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't actually know, but if you realise that as well, so I was there as a media member, journalist and stuff, which was mad.
I hope I didn't walk past you and totally ignore you. Apologies in advance if I did.
That's what I was just thinking when I was like, wait, I didn't actually see you, did I? That's really awkward if we actually like bumped into and said hello and stuff. But I don't think we actually did. But because obviously I worked with Lightning, I bumped into both Mignon de Priya and Chamari Atapatu. So in the press conference, as Mignon was walking in, she saw me and gave me a hug. So then all the other journalists were looking at me like, what's going on? Like, you're not meant to hug the players. But I guess we built such a culture at Lightning of like the whole Lightning family and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I don't know Mignon de Priya very well, but Chamari Atapatu I've umpired quite a bit, and I just love Chamari Atapatu. I think she's pretty funny. So imagine in a team environment she'd be pretty funny. But great cricketers, both of them, and kind of like how good was Mignon de Priya against England in that World Cup? I mean, really, that's the reason they didn't get through.
Yeah, 100%. Because people as well, I think people underestimate South Africa as well, especially when you look in the domestic kind of setups now, the players in that South African team are playing in the WBBL, they're playing in the Super Leagues, the hundreds, the IPL kind of competitions, the Challenge Cup and all that kind of stuff. So it's no wonder that they are performing now as a team, because look at what they're doing domestically.
As a unit, they've got some very talented players in, really. I mean, I just remember kind of like Laura Woodwart, and in the semi-final, that cover drive she played was just incredible. Kind of like it properly was one of the best cover drives I've ever seen.
Definitely
great game of cricket, and she played really well in that game, because she's always been criticised for being slow on the strike rate. But, kind of like really, really talented. So yeah. And obviously you got Nadine Leclerc, isn't it? She played in the Big Bash, didn't she? Women's Big Bash this summer.
Mad. But thank you so much as well.
No, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I wish we could chat for longer, because honestly, there's so much we'd love to go into. It's so hard, so we'll definitely have to do this again.
Perfect.
At some point, Alex, isn't it?
Definitely. Just quickly, where can our listeners find you on social media if they want to sort of follow you or find out more about you, really?
Yeah, so I'm not well hidden. So I'm just Sue_Redfern at Twitter.
Perfect.
And I haven't really ventured into the world of Instagram. I've got an Instagram account, but I don't really know how to use it, if I'm being honest.
You just post photos, so it's fine.
I know.
It's a bit like Facebook, but simpler.
Fair enough.
Honestly, that's where the impact can be for the younger girls growing up who want to be umpires and stuff, because it's such a good place for that, honestly.
Well, I will make a concerted effort in 2021 to do more Instagramming. There you go. That's my pleasure.
Massive thank you to Sue Redfern for coming on and being a guest on the podcast. And to all our listeners, if you want to keep up to date with everything we're doing, you can follow us on Twitter at WCricketChat and on Instagram at Women's Cricket Chat. And if you want to give us a like on Facebook, we are Women's Cricket Chat. And if you wanted to give our personal Twitters a follow, Hannah is at Hannity1194 and I'm at Alex Jane Pereira. This has been Women's Cricket Chat. Tune in next time.